Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Nature Under the Spotlight. This is a place where we take the scientific method and combine it with questions no one is asking to see what happens. Under the spotlight today, we have the grey squirrel. No bird feeder is safe with these guys running riot, which brings into question, how nuts are grey squirrels? Coming to you by Nature Under the Spotlight. It's gonna be nuts. Fortunately, a very reputable and scientific website had an answer to this query, and they estimated that the average intelligence of a squirrel, the IQ of a squirrel, was around 10. And this website was yahoo.com, as we all know, very scientific. Some other questions on there were, do squirrels eat other squirrels? If squirrels are so smart, why did they get run over? And do squirrels bee? Well, do they? So to try and test the individual intelligence of the squirrel population in our garden, I've set up an experiment which should test the ability of problem solving in squirrels, an innate ability which every squirrel should be used to doing, especially in search for food.
If for some reason you wanted to repeat the experiment, you will need a large stick or branch. Was he always there? Looks like he's holding up a plastic cup. You'll also need a large nail, as well as what looks like nuts, but fortunately I always carry 2 on me at all times. Onto the assembly. In your plastic container, you'll need to cut a hole in it, perfect for squirreling hands to reach in. Grab that nail and with a bit of movie magic, force it through the top of the cup. Voila! Screw the cup/nail onto the top of a log, making sure it's perfectly secured. Put your nuts into the container to entice the... Remember, gravity exists and start over. Get a table, movie magic. Screw your table into the log, this might take some time to really twig deep. Nuts. At this point we ran out of movie magic, so you're just going to have to watch me dig the hole for... Just kidding. Make sure the branch is secure in the ground and won't fall over. At this point, you've completed the setup phase of the experiment, so what are we actually measuring? We're measuring the time it takes for the squirrel to go from here to here and eat the nut, with the assumption that the slower the time, the dumber the squirrel. Let's see what happened.
So, welcome to the experiment. If you're wondering where I am right now, I am here with a bigger camera focusing in on the close-up shots, and with one camera looking at the wider angle to try and capture everything that happens in this experiment. I've set that camera up on completely auto because obviously I'm not there, so if some of the lighting is a bit off, don't crucify me. Let the time lapse begin, and I hope you enjoy the video. Welcome back to day 2 of this squirrel experiment. The time is currently 10 o'clock and I left the log out all night last night to try and get some of the wildlife more acclimatized to something new being in their environment. So hopefully we'll get some squirrels. This did not happen. Instead, it was actually extremely disappointing. No squirrels came for the time I was out, which was around 7 hours, so yeah, it didn't go very squirrel. I hope you guys can take this into consideration when you watch the next part of the squirrels. That being said, here are the highlights of day 2. Despite getting no squirrels for the day, I did get some visitors to the table. Our first visitor came in the form of Great Tip, which, as I so eloquently said in the field, is not a squirrel. However, it did give an insight and an opportunity to see some interesting behavioural ecology of the Great Tip. What might initially look like a greedy visitor is actually the Great Tip, picking up a nut, storing it in a tree, and coming back for more. Some didn't quite get the idea, but as you can see, most managed to get a nut, store it, and even come back for fifths. This put an end to day 2. This happened a lot. Over the day and a half of filming, we've had 12 different visits to the squirrel table, split among 3 different individuals. The first up to the table was Fat Sam, and as the name suggests, she ate a lot of the food and, I don't know, it's called Sam. She had one main characteristic when it came to the IQ test, which was aggression. Anytime any of a squirrel attempted to steal from her free food feeding station, she simply chased them away and resumed eating. However, she did put in some very speedy times and averaged a collective time of 7.06 seconds. The next 2 squirrels which attempted the IQ test were a complete contrast to Fat Sam. They were more timid and seemed a little more stupid, so I called them Dumb and Dumber. When they weren't too busy chasing each other around, they finally got to grips with the IQ test and secured an average time of 9.81 and 13.83 seconds respectively. So, with that information, how can we find out how nuts are grey squirrels? Now, before we continue, this is going to be the more mathsy side of the video, so if you want to skip ahead, that's fine. Just skip ahead, it's fine. As you can see in this infographic, here are the average times of each of the squirrels, with the collective time being the average of all of the squirrels' times put together. Now, as Yahoo.com said, the average intelligence of a grey squirrel is around 10 IQ, so we can make this equal to our collective time, forming the equation 10.23x equals 10, with the 10 being the IQ. Now, we divide each side by 10.23 to find out what this factor is, or what x is. And when we do this, we find out x is equal to 0.978. Now, with the knowledge that the average intelligence of a squirrel is 10, we can assume that no squirrel will ever have more than double this, or 20 IQ, so we can set our cap to 20. Therefore, the IQ of a squirrel is between 0 and 20. As such, our relationship between time and IQ becomes y equals 0.978x plus 20, which, when plotted, actually shows a positive relationship, meaning that as time increases, so does your IQ, which is not what we're trying to show. Therefore, we actually make the gradient of the line negative, indicating that the quicker you perform in the IQ test, the greater your IQ will be. Now that we have this relationship plotted, we can find out how intelligent each of our squirrels as individuals are. So, how nuts are grey squirrels? Through running this experiment and collecting my results, I can now categorically tell you how smart the grey squirrels are in my own garden. Someone get the lights. Coming in 3rd place, we have Dumber, with an IQ of 9.8, quite unsurprising. It was pretty well named. Now we're down to our final 2 contenders, Dumb and Fat Sam. Drum roll, please. With an IQ of 13 and the winner of the IQ test, it's Fat Sam. Congratulations. Unsurprisingly, the squirrel which performed the quickest average time is also the squirrel with the highest IQ when you plot it under this relationship. So many curveballs. If you enjoyed this type of video, I want to see more, please like and subscribe and comment what sort of question you want me to tackle next, and I will answer it in the most unscientific, scientific way possible. If you like the background music you're hearing right now, please go check out the Late Pretenders, their links will be in the description below. And whilst you're there, you can check out my Instagram, @BrassSeb, because why not? If for some reason you wanted to repeat this experiment, here's everything you can do better. And I will catch you later.